Well, hello. Today I'm going to do something different. This is my long promised video on pen restoration. And in response to some of the floating head comments, I decided to wear a shirt that does not camouflage in with the couch. So the pen you're not going to see me much, you're just going to see my hands and the pen. The pen I'm going to be restoring is a Fifth Avenue, which is made by Parker. Has kind of a nice story. The Parker Pen Company during the Depression saw the opportunity to offer employment to people. They paid them less to work on this Fifth Avenue line. The pen was cheaply made. It was sold at a low cost. But the whole idea is they were doing their part to get money flowing in the economy again. And I just think it's a nice story, even if the pen, as you will see, isn't amazing. But I think it deserves to be restored just because of the story. So let's take a look at it. Normally, I would do my pen restoration work in the kitchen on the counter, right by water. But for filming purposes, that's just not a good spot. So I'm doing it in the living room. So I put some newspaper down to hopefully protect my table because there is water involved with pen restoration sometimes, most of the time, and possibly some pen cleaning. My pen restoration has kind of been hidden in this drawer. These are my tools. Pull this out. I mean, could I do a better job? Absolutely. But it's all in one place, and I like putting it in containers because then, it goes back in the container when you're done. In this cigar box, I have never smoked a cigar in my life, are various projects upcoming, or possibly just parts. Twisby, I thought, was going to be a easy Christmas break restoration project because somebody gave me a kind of defunct one, and I thought, hey, I will be able to repair because mine cracked. Well, turns out the one that I was given cracked in the exact same spot, so that won't happen. And there's some other, got a Russian pen. Here's a little Parker that's an upcoming project. I need to get on the stick. But the one of interest today, I know you're all cringing the way I'm just rattling these around, but this is the one of interest today. So the first thing we'll want to do is assess it. Now, I don't worry too much about corrosion. I'll wipe it off if I can, but, I have polish that I have never used. I don't typically polish my pens. So I may just leave it because I figure it's an old pen. You can tell it's sort of cheaply made. It's a sack filler. If you listen, I'll do this by the microphone. What I was doing is pulling this out. That's the sound of the sack inside. It is crispy. And if we look at the nib actually looks like it's in good shape. But one of the things I always do is some cleaning. Oh, piece of sack just fell out into my hand. So, let's open it up and see what we've got. We'll set the cap aside. Another benefit of the newspapers, I'm just going to be able to pick it up and get all these pieces of sack rather than piecemeal pick them up. Okay, so ideally, I do want the nib aligned with the lever, so that's something I will rectify if I can. So usually I try pulling them out. Hard to do under the camera. If that fails, which sometimes it does, I have what are called section pliers. I prefer to only use them if there is a nib in the section. But then you can just, don't squeeze too hard, you'll break stuff. But then you can hopefully gently pry that puppy out. And we can see there is the sack in question. Now I'm looking up inside the barrel, see if there's any other parts in there. I don't see any. Do this a couple of times, make sure anything... It feels like the J-bar, or I should call it the pressure bar, is in pretty good shape, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. This is a piece I will probably clean. We'll get to that. this is the main part. And you can see that a bit of the sack, often, I'm not a big user of sack shellac, but often they shellacked these in place. One of the things you run into with some vintage pens is they are screwed into the section, so make sure you know what you're doing. Because if you try pulling out a pen that's screws in, you are in for a destructive surprise. So I'm just chipping loose the little bits of sack here. Such as it is. These are what a sack looks like. I don't have any J-bars here at the moment, which is too bad, because I would have shown you one, but I knew that one was in good shape. But these are pressure bars. These are from button fillers. I should pick up some more J-bars. And anyway, the idea is you press on it, and it pushes a piece against the rubber sack. Or you pull a lever on the side and it pushes a piece against the rubber sack. Either way, that's the notion behind a pressure bar. The ones, like in this pen, are J-shaped. Always put everything away. I'm keeping the sacks out though, because I'm going to use them here in a minute, I hope. The idea behind the J-bar is it actually, the pressure bar is on this side, and it just has kind of like a little fish hook up here to hold it in place. And when you pull this back, you push the pressure bar against the sack. All right, so one of the biggest things that'll get a vintage pen in trouble is they're dirty. Last time they were used, they were just left full of ink, and they just stopped using them. So I usually flush them, get an idea how dirty it is. This one actually is running pretty clear, so that's good. What I'm going to do is just let it soak for a while and change the newspaper. Alright, so it's been sitting for a while. Not very much ink came out of it, I'm pleased to say, so I think it's probably pretty clean. Now, one of the things that will happen to it before it gets dipped in ink is we'll wash it out with some pen flush. But I think we can move on with this video. Okay. You didn't just see that, did you? Right? Okay, if there's water damage to this, I will know why. It was my fault! So, we'll dry this off a little bit here. And some more off screen here with a clean towel. So that of course makes this next step a lot easier. Otherwise, sometimes I have to flush these with, or not flush them, I have to use the ultrasonic cleaner or whatnot on them, and it's just too much like work. So, happy to say I don't have to do that with this one. So, Fifth Avenue nib, not looking the newest, but my philosophy on restoration is it's an old pen. Now, we have to resack it. And that reminds me of a tool that I don't have over here. We'll get to that in a second. So, one of the things I have to do is find an appropriate size for the sack. Not too big, not too small. They come in a number of different sizes. Here's a large sack that I think is too large. Yeah, definitely too large for this pen. I mean, it'll fit on there, but I'll tell you why it's too large. It's too loose on there. And if it's really large, then it fills up the barrel, and the heat from my hand will cause the ink to be expelled out the end, which is no fun. So this is seeming eyeball to be an appropriate size. A little bit smaller than what I'm going to stretch it over. Some people have tools they use to stretch them. I don't. I apologize for the audio deterioration in quality there for a few minutes. I forgot to turn the microphone back on. So that was camcorder, and thank goodness I had the camcorder fixed yesterday when the old microphone got left inside it. Or broken off inside of it, I should say. Now, this is another important set of tools because this sack is too long. So, I know this bit is going to fit up inside the pen. So, let's see if I can do this, show you what I mean. So you can see, once inserted, it's, I don't know, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch too long, centimeter too long. Let's go with metric. And more than that because the J-bar doesn't go all the way up into the top. So I'm going to cut off not quite 2 centimeters. And again, I'm not a Grand Mia pens. I'm not an expert pen restorer. Not somebody you want to hire to do it. So I cut off probably too much, but it is what it is. And now I've just got to fit this by stretching it over. Some pens like this one have a nice rib design to help hold the sack in place. Others, it's smooth, which is why some people use sack shellac. I do not. I really couldn't give you an intelligent reason why. It'll give you a more secure hold with your pen. Oh my God. And this is where the tool that helps stretch it over the end would come in super handy. Another thing you can do if all else fails, which I'll show you here, is you can cuff it. So you just roll up the end a bit, slap it in place, and then you can roll it down over it. Let's see if that looks a little better. That's kind of my next go-to if I'm failing. Okay, the option I finally went with was the sack's too small. That doesn't mean that's a wasted sack. I'm sure it'll show up in a pen down the road. So what happens is this gets squeezed, and when it's released, it sucks in ink. So now I have to reinsert it back into the barrel. Now I've learned a few things over the years about that. And remember, I'm not a Grand Mia pens, I'm not a Pierre Gustafson, I'm not a Chris Rapp 52. I'm an amateur who doesn't really know what he's doing. But one thing I've learned is about talc. That helps, shall we say, lubricate the sack. Now, ideally, I need to put this like in a plastic bag or something. But failing that, we'll just do this a little. Now, you're saying, what's the talc for? Well, I will tell you. That's going to lubricate it when I put it back into the barrel. It's also going to possibly dry it out a little if it needs it. Of course, this is pure talc. This isn't that, the baby powder stuff. So now we'll just double check the length one more time. Looks good. And I'm going to line up the nib and the lever. And it's on. So now the test, have I successfully repaired it? Lots of bubbling there. Oops, too far. Okay, I heard suction when I pulled it out too quickly there. So you squeeze it, let it go, let the rubber expand, and then you pull it out. And it's clearly holding water. So, this is where I use my pen flush. So I've got to make some more. I am almost out. In fact, And it's so low it's not working. If you saw how much footage I'm cutting out of this because I'm a dumbass, you'd just be like, whoa. All right, so put the thingy back in it that helps it work. It's just an old Levenger ink bottle. This is kind of a homemade mix. Ammonia, dish soap, and water. You can find the recipe. Chris Rapp talks about it. Stephen Brown talks about it. Pretty much all of them talk about it. Noodlers has a recipe on ink need last forever. So what I'm doing now is just rinsing it in the fresh water. Nothing too nasty came out. I suppose for added security I should do this extra. This dish, by the way, was donated by a viewer. It's apparently a type of yogurt. I've never seen yogurt sold in glass dishes before. I've always used a salsa cup, but hey. So now I just switched water just to make sure. Okay, and squeeze out the air, the last of it. All right. Now, the cap. Let's just see if it's full of ink or not. Nothing coming out. So I think this pen got put away clean and then was allowed to deteriorate. So now what I'm doing off screen, I'm using a microfiber cloth, just drying off the outside and removing some grime and stuff. It definitely is looking shinier. Like I said, I'm not too into making them look like new. It's cool when you have a vintage pen that looks like it's brand new. Here's a pen you'd never guess was older than me. What is it? A Reform. But I think it's kind of neat when they show their age a little bit. Within reason, I don't hide my gray hair. I earned every one of them. And I blame it all on those darn kids. And genetics. I started going gray in high school. And I'm still in high school. All right, so now I'm just polishing off the barrel a bit. Making it look decent. And now let's just see here. I'm just on the newspaper, the dry part of the newspaper. I was just seeing if it was catching or scratching at all. If there's anything I have to do to the nib. I do have, finally, for a while I was taking a viewer's suggestion and using a 50mm lens, but this is much easier because usually the lens is at school. This is a loop. It has a light on it too. But the idea is then I can look for any issues, which is really hard to do looking through a camcorder screen, looking through a loop. So I'm going to do this off screen here. Okay, the nib is interesting. It looks aligned, but let's see if I can. This is actually interesting. This really took me by surprise. We'll put it in this part of the loop. Maybe. Still not getting there, am I? What I'm trying to show you, and I'm failing, is it almost looks like the end of this nib has been scooped out. Might be an optical illusion. But yeah, it looks very hollow there. Which is, I'm not sure. Why? It's not something I've ever seen before. I don't know if these nibs came with tipping. I'm kind of leaning toward not, just because of the type of pen it was, but I don't know. All right, so now the moment you've been waiting for is, does it right? Usually I would save this for a first impressions video, but I'm doing this instead of a first impression. So let's move the wet, soggy newspaper out of the way. Now you know why I don't do this in the living room. Because it's messy, and I need some kind of ink. So, why didn't I think this far ahead? Darned if I know. So I'm going to use Parker Quink Blue Black, since it is a Parker pen. Those who accuse me of not washing out my pens before I do first impressions, you just saw what I do with vintage pens prior, especially ones I've restored, but all of them, because I don't know where they've been. The new ones, I'll be honest, I don't, and I probably should. Oh, you didn't see me filling there. I am so sorry. I filled it. And I don't have my ink cloth over here either. Doggone it. I did so not think this through. Where is my ink cloth? Over there. If you saw how many times getting up and sitting down I've edited out of this, you'd just be like, whoa. How do you even function, dude? It's because this isn't my normal way of doing things. Okay, so wiped it off. Now I need paper to... Oh my god, again. I need paper to write on. Oh, let's go with this. So this is Japanese Maromon paper. It's oh, good. I've already written on the first page. So the pen, a little small, but it feels good in the hand. It's actually scalloped there. Let's see if it posts. It does post, not amazing, but it will post. So let's see here. And sometimes that happens right away. I'm not panicking yet. Let everything kind of flow down. Sometimes I help it along by dabbing it against the ink cloth. So the ink is almost getting to the tip. Sometimes they just need a little encouragement to get started. Sometimes they do that. You know, and sometimes these vintage pens are cheap pieces of junk. I don't know what's the case here. The ink is close to the tip, it's just not in the tip yet. So that brings you to the next little piece of fountain pen, the fountain pen world. Sometimes the nib is a little naughty. I didn't know if this would happen or not, but you don't know till you ink them up. So some of the other things you can do is what they call nib flossing. While looking for this, because I forgot I had it out to work on the stipula, I discovered a letter that I have not responded to and didn't know I had. So, whoops. This is just a brass shim. And you can do it with the nib out or in. I prefer to leave these nibs in if possible. But what you want to do, and I gotta have it closer to my face. Because I can't see what I'm doing when it's under the camera. But the idea is you just kind of put it into the slit in the nib, like that, and then you can widen it, or maybe it's full of gunk. And then we'll see how that helps. That may have actually done it, to my surprise. I kind of thought I'd be fiddling here for a while, but I guess not. So we'll see how it goes in the long term. Any vintage pen I see is a work in progress. I don't sell these or anything, so this one was actually given to me. But some of the other stuff you can do, I haven't been brave enough to do it yet, but you can use abrasive paper. You can do some nib smoothing. I've got, if it needs serious nib smoothing, you can do that. But I've got various supplies here for nib smoothing. Of course, that I don't feel qualified to suggest, but you've got several grades of smoothing. You can make them super smooth if you want. I will not be doing a video anytime soon on that because, like I said, I just do not feel qualified. But you will find other reviewers on YouTube who do feel qualified. So far, the most I've ever done it on is a Jet Pens Chibi. Kind of to learn how, and it scared me because, well, it's just so easy to do damage, and especially on a nib like this, then it's forever. So let's just do a quick look at how this writes. What do I usually do? So this is a Parker. Maybe we'll zoom in on it, because that's what I usually do when I'm downstairs, right? This is a Parker 5th Avenue. Boy, this is an awkward angle. And you can tell it's a Parker 5th Avenue because it says so on the nib. I told you the story behind it already. I can't tell if that's scalloped out or if that's just an optical illusion. The ink is Parker Quink, blue-black. Not a flex nib, it's a steel nib. It's a cheap nib. I'd say it has a little character. But yeah, this is not one of those glorious pens of the past that everybody waxes nostalgic about. Let's see, wetness and flow. Now that it's writing, I'm pretty pleased. I'll admit this is never going to be one of my favorite pens, but it's writing. Wetness and flow, the smear test. A little dry, but it could be the ink. The reverse writing. Oops. I finally got my set so it's comfortable to write at, and now I'm trying to do this, and this is awful. Reverse. Oh my god, now I'm not going to finish that. It's so scratchy and disgusting. So we'll do the Pierre Gustafson test here. He's also he likes his vintage pens. He restores vintage pens, sells them. You saw some of them on my channel. I bought 2 of them from him. So that's the Parker 5th Avenue pen restoration, for better or for worse. I'm no Grand Mia pens. I am no Chris Rapp 52. Both of them would have a lot more to teach you than I do. What I'm hoping you got out of this is to feel empowered to start trying it. The most I've usually done, these pens, lever fill pens, are pretty straightforward. As you work your way up, you'll start dealing with ones with pistons and so on. One of my projects will go under the camera again, I think. One of my little pets that I got to work on. Maybe somebody can tell me what to do, because I've not quite got this one figured out yet. If it's in here. There it is. This is a Marquant East German make. Kind of a neat barrel. Very nifty 70s looking nib and feed. And you open it, and let's see if you can see it. So piston mechanism works. But you see that? That little doohickey there? That needs to be attached here. And I'm not sure how to do that because I've not been able to figure out how to get into this thing. And then, of course, one of my fears is breaking. So I'm at a standstill with this pen. So if somebody has some advice for me about how to get in, I would sure appreciate it. But that said, I hopefully what I've done is I've encouraged you to get your hands dirty. Try it. There are those people who work on the piston fillers. I've done one successfully. I've cleaned a lot out and made them work that way. Taken them apart and greased them. That's usually an easy fix. Some people know how to fill vacuumatic fillers. Some people know how to clean and repair. Like the Schaefer snorkel is an insane mechanism inside. I wouldn't know where to start with one of those, but there are those people out there who work on them as well. So, tinker. Do things with your hands. That's part of the fun of this hobby. And, bonus, the pens are a lot... Oops, I'm out of focus when I do that. The pens are a lot cheaper if they're not working. So you can get some surprisingly nice pens at a fairly low cost if you wish. So, I want to thank you for watching. Next video will be back in my regular set, to the relief of some and the disappointment of others. But I thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye. And now I got to clean this mess up.